The Annie Altman Show podcast and other projects are field me search for the Humani. Hey, it's Annie. Please check out and share the website, Patreon, and Etsy to help support these projects and my self-project. The Humani is a one-woman show about how no one ever fully figures out how to be a human being, how there's themes of the human being experience organized into 10 C words connected by the theme of connection, and how discussing these themes we all experience somehow is my best idea to contribute to minimizing unnecessary human suffering through maximizing resource equity. That was a lot of words. Maybe note when you hear the words connection, consciousness, choice, change, compassion, communication, community, creation, charge, curiosity, and/or courage in this episode. That's also a lot of words. Here's some more. Hello and welcome to the All Humans Are Human podcast, Season 5. Welcome to the first episode in the Curiosity C series. I am so excited I get to be here today with Phoenix Calida of sex work outreach project SWAP. I'll link below. You can check out swapusa.org online to learn more. And we're going to talk all things sex work outreach, curiosity, see where it goes. Probably pets and plants, I hope. Hi, Phoenix. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to get to kick off this podcast about curiosity, and I think it ties in very well with a lot of our themes here today.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
want
you had some, oh, go ahead.
No, you go. I got too excited.
I was gonna say, yeah, when you told me the theme was curiosity, I was like, really? That's so fascinating when we're talking about sex work and outreach and talking to sex workers, because one of the things that like I always say is the best way to learn about sex workers' rights is just to talk about sex workers and like be curious. Like, what are your stories? Who are you? Where do you come from? What do you do? Like, who are you as a person? Just because there's like so much stigma against sex workers in society that it's like when someone hears you're a sex worker, like it's like that's the only thing that they need to know about you, and suddenly you become a one-dimensional character. So I was like, oh, we get to talk about sex work and curiosity. This is going to be so fun. So I got really excited.
I love this, and I very much appreciate your patience with my overexcitement on things. It does fit in so well to the humanizing, where as soon as somebody hears sex work, because of all the stigmas of it and because of all of the personal sexual shame that everybody has some some level of, that it's like it takes over the whole conversation, or like people don't see
Hmm.
those people as humans anymore almost.
Absolutely. I see it all the time. And it's, I sound like I'm bragging. I'm not trying. I'm not trying to brag
Brag,
at all,
brag,
but
brag.
I've but I've been on a lot of podcasts and I've done a lot of interviews and I've talked to a lot of people. And one thing they always ask is like, well, what can we do to like, focus on, reducing stigma and helping sex workers and, fighting for sex workers' rights. And I always ask like, well, do you listen to any sex worker led like podcasts? Do you read sex worker led blogs? Do you follow sex workers on social media who talk about their lives? And everyone's always like, no. And it's like, well, that probably would help like boost what sex workers are saying. You know, it seems so obvious, but so many people don't do it.
It's exactly that. It's the most obvious truth right in front of people's faces. That Do you think it's more the like personal sexual shame side that people don't realize, oh, let me listen to a sex worker, let me read something by a sex worker? Do you think it's more of the like societal and political, or obviously it's both? I don't know how we could even measure, but do you feel like it's one more than the other?
I think it's definitely the personal, but also very much because there's already so much stigma built into society that people don't, not only for their own personal shame, but they're afraid of public shame. Because if you say, like, oh, I follow a bunch of sex workers, people are going to be like, well, why? Or is it because you're like a porn addict? And
Yep.
you're like, no, I just think they make really good points about politics sometimes.
Post
It's
all
kind of
the
like when
time.
people, hmm it's kind of like people who used to say that I subscribe to Playboy for the articles. Like no one would believe them, you know? I think it's kind of like that. And, we're sort of stuck in this place where there's this idea that because sex workers are so stigmatized, they can't be people. So if you are talking to sex workers or you are listening to sex workers, the automatic assumption is that the only reason that you're doing it is because you're trying to get something out of it, whether that's like you want sex workers to pay attention to you, you want sex workers to send you nudes, you want to, get replies from them in your comments for your ego or whatever it is. It can never just be believing that, hey, I think sex workers make good points about stuff and I'm interested about their perspective on things. It's never, you're never allowed to just have that, you know?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's a little disappointing.
Very disappointing because it ends up holding everybody back. But I definitely
It does.
I used to be one of those people before I started sex work that I would judge somebody who said they just read Playboy for the articles. I would totally be a
Uh,
yeah, right to that kind of person in a way that I do feel like justice for the Playboy for the article dudes now. I never thought I'd say that. Some of them were just wanting, some of them were lying, but some of them were genuinely wanting to see things.
yeah.
And I think even more now with people having non-Hugh Hefner company things and having their
Hmm.
platforms to talk that it changes
Absolutely.
even more that one-dimensional description that you use that people get into. Like, oh wait, oh my God,
Hmm.
that sex worker is a PhD. That sex worker is also a writer. That sex worker is also a yoga teacher and a dancer and a
Hmm.
oh my God, wait a minute.
Right. And it's so fascinating to me because I find that this only ever happens like with sex workers specifically, in the sense that you're never allowed to be anything but a sex worker, right? Because this, like, if you're, an elementary school teacher, you're allowed to have hobbies. A, uh, if you're a firefighter, you're allowed to be more than just a firefighter. If you're, a college professor, like that's not the, anything. But you do sex work, and all of a sudden, it's like that's the only thing that you are. So yeah, a little more curiosity on behalf of society would be really great, actually. Like, let's humanize the sex workers.
Curiosity for sex workers. Curiosity for humanity
Yeah.
of it. It's so wow. It makes me think, or the example of people having other hobbies brings up a lot of good points too about just the stigma around sex in general and just how much curiosity people avoid going into
Hmm.
about their sexuality and then get triggered by seeing someone else, one, be open about it on some level, and then two, make money off of it. Because I think this is
Hmm.
something we see in other things, like cooking is an easier example of like something that everybody does and can do on some level, but then some people monetize it, and that changes how people see things, or there's just all these big feelings that come up about someone monetizing something that everybody does. And I think
Hmm.
sex is similar, but then even more emotionally intense because of things related to sex or just everything there that then there's like a jealousy frankly of people being like, oh well, why do you get paid for that, or why is somebody getting money for this thing, or like I think there's
Right.
a lack of curiosity sometimes because people don't want to address the discomfort of that.
Hmm. No, I can totally see that. And I think that's really sorry. Good Lord. Yeah, choking on my mouth.
You okay?
Yeah, apparently I just like forgot how to breathe for a second.
I'm glad you remembered. I've done that too. I've done the same
I'm
done the same thing. Okay.
also very glad I remembered.
All, all, whew. It's scary, those moments you don't know. Then you're
Ugh,
fine.
yeah.
And it's like reflecting on all the sometimes I think
Yeah.
saying big truths out loud, but it's like the things that everybody's thinking are the things that like obviously everybody is alive because people had sex. This is not
Hmm.
like these aren't secret things, but sometimes it's like, well, we can't say that part out loud. Why not? Let's
Hmm.
talk about it.
And I think that there's also like a level of animosity aimed at sex workers in particular, just because of the fact of who sex workers are, in terms of demographics, right? Sex workers are predominantly women, whether that be cis or trans, that or AFAB people who identify as non-binary, a lot of LGBTQ representation. And so because those are groups that already sort of like tend to be dismissed in society, I think there's an extra level of animosity there to be, well, how come you get paid to do this thing? And
Uh,
it's like, I think you're just mad that people are finding ways to work outside of the system and survive outside of the system. And I think that's what you're actually mad about because you don't think that women should be able to do that. Because I don't see people saying this about, for example, like cis white male entrepreneurs,
yeah.
right? People aren't like, well, how come you get to do that and make money? I'm like, no.
Yep.
But
That's
let it be a sex worker, and all of a sudden,
Yep. All of a sudden people have a big problem. I'm so glad you brought that up, and that was the perfect timing of it too, because it is that it's all the specific colonialism, capitalism, patriarchy layers that are like, well, that's not okay for someone to make money off this thing that we all do, but especially not women because we don't see you fully as human anyway. It's like, oh, your ego is hurt right now. Maybe
hmm
hire a sex worker, naked therapist to talk about that with. Just a
honestly,
thought.
and
Just a
and
thought.
it's so ironic because then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy
Yep.
because you're mad at sex workers for being able to make money off of selling sexual services or sexual content, but at the same time you're subtly encouraging people to go see them because you don't want people to talk about sex and sexuality and their kinks and their desires and their fears and their vulnerabilities. You don't want them to be curious, right, about their sexuality. So now they don't have anywhere to go but to sex workers because who else can they talk about that with?
You're so
And
spot
so
on.
it's you've created like your own sort of weird feedback loop by being anti-sex worker and anti-sex that now you've created a permanent market for sex workers because people have nowhere else to go to talk about sex. Yeah, you did
Wow.
that.
So spot on again. Did you hear that, Peter Thiel? You created this whole feedback network of people then going somewhere to talk about something because of that exact, because you're shaming them. Because, and thank you for looping in curiosity again, because of discouraging people from being curious about their own sexuality, their own embodiment, and instead disconnecting them from themselves, then it is exactly feeding into the same thing, which again goes to it's so like elementary playground school bullying, where it's like some little boy
Mm-hmm.
is mad that some little girl beat him in a race, and his whole identity and worldview's just been like flipped upside down, and so he's freaking out because she's better at something than him, instead of being like, oh my God, we're both better at different things. Would you look at that? We have similar and different skill sets, and we could like I think so
You
often
know,
about how the majority of the internet still is sex and sex work, and this proliferated the internet, this proliferated businesses. If you look at advertising and how much
oh yeah.
is all throughout, but then when women make money from it, it's like, well, hold on, that's too much of a kink in capitalism. You can't do that. Not like that.
And and also the way that women make money off sexuality is so fascinating to me, like what's allowed and not allowed. Because you can have like for example, like for the most part, you won't be shunned. I mean, except for some like extreme weirdo, like conservative evangelical types. But like if you're, for example, say a Victoria's Secret model, people aren't going to shame you for that. But is that job not selling sexuality? You model lingerie for a living. Like, you know what I mean? But somehow we accept that, but we won't. But we'll look down on strippers, right? Or we'll like look at women who are like background dancers in videos or play love interest in a James Bond movie, and that's fine, even though you're just getting naked on camera to have sex with James Bond. But if you're a sex worker in real life, absolutely not. We won't have it. And who is making these weird arbitrary rules about sexual representation and labor? Because
Yep.
it's weird, right? It's weird.
It's weird. The curiosity about the who's making the rules and their sexuality is where I go back to with this a lot, because you're spot on, and again, perfect timing in the, well, why is this type of selling sex okay but not this type? And the biggest thing coming to mind that I've seen before, and I'm sure you have too, is that in one of those the woman is explicitly consenting to selling
Yes.
sex, and in the other, maybe she's consenting, maybe she's not, but she is not giving that there's not the explicit selling sex. And so there isn't the explicit consent in the same way that, like, when I posted on OnlyFans and that was me posting a thing there, yes, there's all the background survival and we can talk about survival work and consent and blah blah blah, but it was me owning that versus
Mhm.
just like, look at this cute bikini, look at this cute bra.
Right?
I'm just a stupid girl.
Because I've been, oh my gosh, no, but I have been making this point so often recently, um, in light of all the like censorship bans that are coming out right now.
Mhm.
So, right, because there's the UK did their thing, and now you have to like basically show your ID to look at anything online in the UK, and everyone's just getting a VPN. We've had laws here that are trying to do it. We have like the age verification laws that a bunch of states in the South have them, of course. But that's the thing. And oh shoot, I lost my tangent. Where was I going with that? About needing age ver Oh, right. Because something that I've been trying to explain to people who aren't in sex work is that this will also impact you because this is these bans are about anything that's perceived as sexual. What they're doing is using stigma against sex workers specifically and pornography specifically to get these bills passed, but they're not stopping with pornography. They're not stopping with sex work, right? And now I'm trying to explain to people like you might just be a woman who's on vacation, and you just want to take a picture in your bikini at the beach because you're just on vacation. But what visually is the difference of a non-sex working woman in a bathing suit at a pool versus a sex worker who is posting in a bathing suit at a pool because they're working out of that hotel that week? Visually, what's the difference? There isn't one, and both get written off as sexual content. And people who aren't in the sex work industry are finding their own stuff starting to be banned, right? We're watching it happen with Collective Shout. I think that was the name of the anti-porn group in Australia that got a bunch of video games kicked off stream because they have sexual content. Now they're coming for like erotica, like written erotica, smut, romanticy type books, and it's like y'all were so happy to let these type of things go because you thought it wouldn't impact you because it was just sex workers or it was, just people in porn. But now all of a sudden you might have to show an ID to buy, your favorite BDSM erotica. And people are like, but that's not what I meant when I said I supported these bills. It doesn't matter if that's what you meant. That's what happened. This is where we are. you know,
Yep.
Learn about it.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know.
A complete lack of curiosity again for the sex workers
Yep.
have always been the canary in the coal mine. They're saying something
Constantly.
going to impact you. This isn't like a cute little song and dance. This is a hey, you're next. This is what we're experiencing and it's coming to you next.
And I
Even
think one of the most, oh, go ahead. Go
pardon. No,
ahead.
I was thinking of feet and like how many foot fetishes there are, like people not posting their feet on social media because they don't want people to see them, but then also like the lines between what is sexual or not, or that someone's always going to find anything sexual, essentially.
hmm
You could just keep
Right. And I think
expanding
that's,
that.
yeah, no,
Are you
I
going to
think that's
ban
like
people?
such a,
Can't post a pedicure picture because there's some guy out there that's going to jack off to it. So,
right, right. I'm
yeah,
saying
post
like
it.
people don't think about these type of things when, this type of legislation comes down. They just don't think about what the ramifications will be and how far it's going to go. But that seems really basic to me. And also, what's fascinating is this pushback to the censorship. I'm seeing stuff that is blatantly sexual, but it's not framed as sexual, which is also so fascinating to me. Right. So, like I don't know if you've seen these type of videos, but it'll be something like, oh God, there was one guy who was constantly in my feed. I don't know why, because sorry, I don't mean to king shame, but I found his thing to be disgusting, where he
Okay.
was like cooking, but like making it like sexy, you
Oh,
know?
like the classic like male influencer cooking trope where it's so sexual and they have like a toothpick hanging out of their mouth the whole time because they don't want to confront their bisexuality,
Well,
but they're like wanting to be like, look at me, look at my chopping
it
skills.
was it would be like stuff like he would be like making bread, but the way he was kneading the dough, like
Yep.
clearly that was like a euphemism for fingering a vagina. Like,
Yep.
okay, I see what you're doing, but somehow that's not labeled as sexual. But you can't like you can't sell feet on OnlyFans in some states because
Yep.
adult content, but you can watch the guy like basically molest bread dough. Like, what are we doing?
Makes no sense at all. It makes no sense. Well, that's yeah. What are we doing? And the longer, like my curiosity with that too is that the longer that goes on, the more it gets normalized, or the more people are like, oh, I guess that's like what like male cooking videos are like, or that there's a
Hmm.
cultural norm where like that guy's seen as like a funny and smart influencer, entrepreneur, but if a woman does that, everybody's commenting like, "What's the OF link? Drop the link. Where do I find your whatever?"
Right.
Nobody's asking
Hmm.
if he's on OnlyFans just because he's putting maybe like one, maybe two people are, but
Yeah.
I doubt that his comments in that video were flooded with "Where can I find your porn?" in the same way that if a woman
Right.
made the same
Exactly.
video.
Exactly. And it's so funny because my spouse came across this too the other day because he was looking on TikTok because he was like, because we have a garden. We like to garden. We can talk about gardening too at some point
Hey.
because I love gardening. Oh my God, I've just been looking at your seeds that I have to send you. They're just sitting on my desk, and every day I walk downstairs and I'm like, oh yeah, I was supposed to mail those yesterday. I've done that for like a week
It's okay.
straight.
You're like
I'm
doing a
sorry.
moon bath or whatever. The timing's not right yet. The energy, the timing is
But he was looking at TikTok and he was like, "Oh, he was like, I'm a black man. I want to see black men garden." So he's
Yep.
like searching like black men gardeners. He's like, "It's just a bunch of really in shape men with their shirts off, picking up pots and walking around. They're not actually gardening." Yeah,
He's like, oh, this is gardening porn. This is not real gardening.
it's not actually gardening. But of
Performative
course, but
gardening.
it's not right performative gardening. But of course, it's not labeled as inherently sexual content, even though it very clearly is.
Yep.
But it's not on OnlyFans, so it doesn't count. But it didn't happen at a strip club, so it doesn't
Yeah. Because it doesn't make certain people money. It doesn't count. It all go like it all
Mm-hmm.
the capital. How dare women make their own money? Oh no, you weren't supposed to be able to buy your own house and own things. It like I don't
Right? Have
sometimes
rights, have opinions.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I do sometimes when I like really go down this rabbit hole, I remind myself just how recently women got the ability to own their own bank account. Like, yeah,
Yes.
voting rights
Yes.
and all of that, but I really think in United Corporations of America, it's all you vote with your dollar. And
Absolutely.
it was so recent that women were like, in some ways, of course, super old men don't see women as humans because they weren't allowed to own a bank account for most of their life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
society was saying that. It's
Yep.
it is the double standards and how people can start to see them to go again to your first point of listen to sex workers, listen to something by a sex worker, talk to a sex worker. Like I can think of civilian friends who would listen to this and be like, "Oh yeah, all that stuff makes sense." Yeah, of course that double
Mm-hmm.
standard's there and there's at least the relief that more people are seeing through it.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping. Yeah. In terms of women's rights, I think I constantly think about one of the women getting the right to vote, and a lot of that being a push for prohibition, which is just fascinating to me, about which women are willing to be sort of safeguards of patriarchal white supremacist values, just always in my head. When women were allowed financial independence and marital rape. I think a lot of people don't know that marital rape was not illegal in all 50 states until into the 1990s.
You're so right to
Yeah.
bring that one up. Yeah.
Like, because that's kind of like because I was born in the 80s. So like it's wild to me to know that when I was born, when I was a child, before I became a teenager, that had my mother been sexually assaulted by her spouse, that it wouldn't have counted as real rape. Like that's just wild to me.
It is so wild. So,
Yeah.
so recent. That's so, so recent.
Like yeah, that's not a long time ago at all. Like that's yeah.
No. And so
So
in some case like in a small silver lining, the fact that like he could see performative gardening videos and already see the bullshit of that is that's a huge amount of progress in a short amount of time. Like
yeah.
for that to have happened for that to have been when you were born and your mom's experience and now
Mhm.
your partner can see the like, oh, here is a man selling sex in the same way women are shamed for, which like obviously
Hmm.
your education and your teaching and all the things that's still a big difference of like where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's a
Yeah.
good, I mean, I can imagine for him with all your work with Swap, he's in the high percentile of educated of men especially who get this or are curious enough to talk about it. Or I don't know,
Yeah. And
start there. Like, do you think men or women close up here more or like are more
um
curious?
I
Maybe different.
I I think yeah, I think it's different. I think that with men who are curious, I find initially a lot of times their curiosity is like sort of rooted in the idea that they want to support sex work, but they don't want to support abuse or trafficking or, people who are non-consensually in the sex trade, which I think is, a good thing. But when you look at like the societal perceptions of people who will really be like, well, there's, like 40,000 people trafficked into the sex trade every year, and 92% of people in the sex trade are there by force and they can't leave. And, you see those stats and you're like, wait, am I a bad like man? Am I doing a bad job of manhood? Like if I go to a strip club or if I subscribe to someone's OnlyFans or if I watch porn, because I don't want to contribute to that problem, but I enjoy porn, you know,
Hmm.
and so it's like really talking to these men about like, well, those stats are not accurate. Sex trafficking does happen. It does not happen with the frequency that those sort of stats would lead you to believe. It doesn't nearly happen with that frequency. People are much more likely to be trafficked into different labor fields like agriculture and domestic labor, right? So,
Hmm.
what like nannies, house cleaners, housekeepers, that sort of thing. The people who clean, the maids at hotels and things like that,
Right.
far more likely to see instances of trafficking. And then, of course, agriculture, fruit pickers and that sort of thing. People who work in like slaughterhouses, much higher instances of trafficking than in the sex trade. But you know, but I do appreciate them being concerned because, yeah, we want to consume sexual content, but consume it ethically because people are inherently sexual, and sometimes you just want to see something that sexually arouses you. And, I think it's important to talk to them about, like, okay, well, if you're really concerned about what type of porn you're consuming or, what type of adult content you're consuming, look at who's making it, what kind of social media profiles do they have? Is it someone who, clearly has like their own accounts and they're posting their own content? Is it a studio that's known for having, a lot of protections for its employees and its workers? Like there are ways to consume sexual content in ethical ways. Contrary to what social
Yep.
stigma tells you, there are actually a lot of things you can do to make your sexual content consumption much more ethical. So, but I'm glad that men are asking, and I do appreciate that curiosity from them. I think that's a good thing.
Yes, well, I appreciate you sharing. I didn't know the statistics on those other fields that trafficking was so much higher in. I knew that it was a bunch of propaganda, or I know that like I have a very weird thank you to Ashton Kutcher for being an asshole and outing people who put themselves out there as stopping sex trafficking as very much being involved in it, or like people who are the more
Mm-hmm.
someone is talking about, oh, trafficking this, trafficking like that, those are
Mm-hmm.
yeah, those are people to look out for. But I didn't know that it was that I didn't know the other industries where the rates of trafficking
Oh,
are much higher and
yeah, it's exponentially higher.
yep, I believe
Yeah.
it.
And I think that like also it's hard for people to wrap their heads around that because it's so propagandized, right?
Yep.
Because like one of the big things that I see a lot is, oh my God, I'm just sorry, I'm gonna go on a tangent. I go on this tangent all the time, and
So that's what
it's
we're
like I
here
can't
for.
stop myself.
Go for it.
Um, is speaking of curiosity, if you want to talk about curiosity, something that you should be curious about are police reports. Okay, I know, I
Yeah.
know. Just take a moment, sit and be uncomfortable for a moment. I know. We're not supposed to directly question police. It's bad. It's whatever. I know. Okay. Now that you've gotten past your discomfort, here's what you need to know. Okay. A lot of sex trafficking stings are framed as sex trafficking stings, and they'll involve local police, county police, state law enforcement, sometimes federal government. and they'll post stuff, right? Like people have seen the headlines, like, oh, there was a sex trafficking sting in whatever city, and there were 32 arrests. Now, because someone said sex trafficking sting and 32 arrests, people will assume that means you arrested 32 sex traffickers or one sex trafficker and maybe 31 people who were trying to abuse the person that the sex trafficker was holding captive, right?
The victim in this
No,
supposed sex trafficking situation.
exactly. Look at the actual stats and the results in the arrests. The vast majority of arrests are sex workers, okay? Not sex trafficking victims, not sex traffickers,
Who is supposed to be the
sex
victim in
workers.
that scenario? If it was sex trafficking, then clearly that is
Right.
the person that is victimized in this narrative. That's so ridiculous.
Exactly, right? So it's not sex trafficking victims being rescued. It's not sex traffickers being arrested. So who are these arrests and what are they for? You find out it's things like arresting sex workers for like possession of marijuana, right? If it's a non-legal state,
Mhm.
or possession of drug paraphernalia, right? A lot of times they'll arrest sex workers and they won't charge them with necessarily prostitution, but they'll get charged with things like loitering, jaywalking, right? Being outside, those sort of things, like being outside in a place you're not supposed to be, right?
Existing as a human
And
woman.
honestly,
Keep going. I just, yeah.
like, yeah, and so it's that. Or sometimes it's clients. Or the other thing that they'll do is say, like, oh, we found like 42 men who wanted to have sex with a minor and showed up at this hotel to have sex with a minor. And then you find out there were actually no minors involved. It was police pretending to be minors
Mm-hmm.
to, and I know people are like, well, we should arrest those guys anyway. I'm not going to argue against that. Like, if you are willing to go online and talk to who you think is a child and then show up to have sex with them, you're not getting my sympathy. I am just saying that perhaps it should be framed as what that actually was, because that's not a sex trafficking sting because there are no actual sex trafficking victims involved. But again, if you say sex trafficking sting, we arrested 42 men looking to have sex with a minor, people assume that there was like a room full of minors who were about to be sexually exploited. Be honest about that part. That's all I'm saying, you
That
know?
part. It's the
And so,
propaganda. It's the spinning the narrative.
exactly, exactly. Or like another big propaganda thing that we see is these sort of stats about like, so many thousands of children every year are at risk of sex trafficking, or so many thousands of children every year go missing, right? Look deeper into those stats because they're almost never actually accurate. Can you leave the cat alone? Sorry. The dog always thinks all the cats want to play with him at all times. And the oldest cat is like, I do not fuck with you. I'm old. I want to go lay down. Leave me alone.
That's so funny.
Um,
I love the dog friendships. Dogs are like play, toy, game.
right now, it's time to play, right?
Not right now.
Um,
Yeah.
but 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 yeah, look at those stats more closely, right? Because then it'll be like children who are at risk of being exploited, and then you look at the children who are missing, and the majority of children who are missing aren't actually missing. Yeah, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but it's true because what happens is a child gets reported missing if it gets like makes it onto the statistics of being missing if they get reported missing. But the vast majority of those children are actually kids whose parents or family members are going through like custody disputes and visitation disputes, right? Where like mom was supposed to get child on Sunday. Dad said, screw you, I'm not coming back till Monday. Mom reports child missing. That child is now listed as an at-risk youth, right? And I'm not saying like custody disputes are a good thing or a great thing, but that's a far cry. Like when everyone knows where the child is, everyone knows it's a dispute between the parents
Yep.
that's going to be sorted out in family court. That's a very different situation than like on the street at risk of being sexually exploited because they're homeless. Like that's a very different scenario. But those kids all get lumped in together as if they were living the same type of life, right? The same thing with kids who get reported as like runaways, right? And it turns out they just ran away from home to go to a concert or something, right? Or they ran away to go to their boyfriend or their girlfriend's house for the weekend and didn't tell their parents because they were mad at their mom and, those sort of things. And again, like those situations aren't great. I would love to see less of those. But again, that's very different than a child who's legitimately like homeless on the streets, has nowhere to go. and maybe sexually exploited because they have no resources, right? Like these are very different scenarios, but they all get framed the same way because then you can bolster the numbers. And once you bolster the numbers, now you can make it into a moral panic of like 40,000 children every year are at risk of being sexually exploited. And now it sounds like a problem, and that justifies these police sex trafficking stings that supports all this money going to these anti-trafficking orgs and these rescue organizations. And it becomes $1 billion business essentially. So, I think a lot of people don't know that. Because on the surface of it, like, yeah, if you see like, oh, all these children are at risk or this was a sex trafficking sting, you're like, oh, I support this because you're saving victims of sex trafficking. They aren't.
It's
They
that.
aren't.
They aren't. They aren't. And it's such a manipulation of statistics and psychology on so many levels that for people who are for the average genuinely good person who cares about their fellow humans and is ignorant and especially ignorant to sex worker things, exactly what you
Mm-hmm.
said, they read that headline or those statistics and they believe, I think less so now, but still more, a lot of people believe it's true. They take it as truth. They don't
Mm-hmm.
get curious about, well, what are all of the other parts of this data? How's this data been manipulated to not actually reflect the real data here?
Mm-hmm.
And again, to the point of, or like the biggest thing with those of who are the trafficking victims then? Like if
Right. Where are they?
it's this whole crafted narrative about that conversation that it I feel like it preys on people's ignorance to not know to ask that question if they don't know. And it weaponizes
Mm-hmm.
their empathy of, oh, well, people are being helped and saved from trafficking and that's horrible. So blah 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 and not being curious, listening to sex workers, hearing where those statistics come from, and then how those
Yep.
statistics are used to moralize things in the way of like, oh, well, we have this statistic to back it up. So just like creates
Mm-hmm.
a cycle that I feel like we're seeing implode, or it seems it seems like something is shifting in people being able to do sex work more independently with the
Yes.
internet, that it seems like a lot of that stuff shifts. Or what do you think about like that whole transition?
I mean, I think that in a lot of ways, the rise of OnlyFans was good for that, because you don't have to necessarily figure it out on your own to be an in-person worker, or you don't necessarily have to work at a brothel, or you don't have to work for a porn studio. You can literally just, set up, like you can film from your smartphone in your bedroom, you
Yep.
know. And I think that that like really is indicative of the fact of how many people, one, are willing to do sex work. Because one of the big things about sex work stigma has always been like, well, I would never sell my body that way. So anyone
Yep.
who does, like, there's something wrong with them. Like they're too traumatized to make good decisions, or they're too steeped in addiction to make good decisions, or they're so mentally ill that they can't make good decisions. Like
All
there's
about
just
their decision
something like
making. They can't be trusted.
right.
They're
They
unstable.
can't be trusted.
They're just too mentally unstable to be trusted in anything. It's crazy.
Hmm. And I think that seeing like OnlyFans has sort of put a little bit of that myth to rest, because now we're just seeing regular people who are like, yeah, I'm willing to, masturbate on camera for a couple $100 a month.
Yep.
Like.
Yeah.
And it's, so there's that. And then also just showing how many sex workers are actually working independently. Because I think a lot of people have live with the assumption that the majority of sex workers have pimps, right? Or are being victims of sex trafficking. I hate the word
Yep.
pimp, but that's I hate how that word is like so entrenched in society. Like it's such like a racialized term. But people like, oh well, this person is working for their trafficker, or this person is only doing it because someone is forcing them, or they don't have any other options. And it's like now we're seeing that, oh, there are sex workers and they are speaking for themselves, which I think is a great thing. So. And I think that's part of where the shift comes from. I think it's also part of just seeing like the hypocrisy, because a lot of the
Yeah.
anti-sex work messaging is coming from people who typically would be framed as conservative, sometimes liberal, but mostly conservative. But I think we've seen the hypocrisy where it's like y'all are letting your church leaders, molest children and abuse children,
Yep.
but you're claiming that you're against, sexual immorality. Like someone, and I think the average person is going to say, like, someone consensually selling sexual services, like, getting paid for a blowjob is not more immoral or unethical than a preacher using his position of authority to molest a child. you
I would
know?
say the
So
former is significantly more ethical and moral, like worlds, light years, infinitely more moral for adults
yeah, and
by working
so
together versus somebody to abuse their power. Like, the hypocrisy is, I'm glad you brought that in here too.
yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
It's the big
So,
part of it. Pardon, I was just, my head was spinning with like that one politician that got found in an airport having sex with a man, and he was one of the most vocal anti-gay rights, where it's like we
oh
see
my
that
God,
all the
wide stance, wide stance, wide stance.
time. That's what, okay.
That was no, that was his thing though, right? You're talking about Larry Craig?
I think so. My memory has
Yeah.
blocked his name
So,
out. Like he doesn't deserve a name in my head. It's just the anti-gay politician who was fucking a man in the airport bathroom. That's
He had the one stance, and he also basically implicated himself in a sexual harassment case.
yes. Uh,
that.
Spouse is here and just confirmed. Yeah, it was Larry Craig. So I have to say Larry Craig because this is why I remember his name. Because he did get caught in the airport bathroom trying to have sex with a gay man. But apparently, in that bathroom was a thing where, like, you would tap your feet in the bathroom stall a certain way to indicate that you were, like, looking for another man.
Okay.
Because there were, like, people soliciting in the bathroom. And when he got caught, they were like, "But you did the foot tap," and he said, "No, I just have a wide stance when I spot to use the bathroom." Like that was literally his excuse. Was he was just like, "I have a wide stance." And that's how he tried to get out of it.
I'm
What?
giving the tap to fuck a man. This is just how I be.
So,
Oh man.
so yeah. So
That's
that one I remember just because the wide stance part is forever going to be hilarious to me.
hilarious. Oh,
So
it's
yeah.
important to say people's names are too, like I think there are ways to use public shame effectively of like saying his name and connecting, like making the wide stance a meme and a reminder of the hypocrisy, and like be curious about those people who are super against gay rights, trans rights, sex worker rights, and
Uh-huh.
wait to see their hypocrisy come out somehow.
Absolutely.
So funny. I didn't know
Because
that quote.
yeah, I just have a wide stance.
Oh man. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think that sort of stuff coming to the forefront is also helping because it really does, I think, shake not necessarily cognitive dissonance, but make people aware that, like, oh, maybe I didn't really have the full story, or maybe I didn't have enough details, or maybe the details I do have were, manufactured propaganda, and I should look a little bit deeper into that because the math ain't mathing here.
Yeah.
So,
It's that, which is then the curiosity to admit you were wrong or you didn't know something, which is challenging for everyone.
absolutely.
Like I have
Mm-hmm.
information. I I gotta reevaluate my whole identity here. Like I gotta unpack this whatever thing now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that is a really hard thing because no one wants to admit that they were wrong. Because a part of admitting you were wrong in this sort of sense also means that, like, you got duped. And I think, like, it's one thing to be wrong. I think it's another thing to admit that you got manipulated. I think a lot of people really hesitate to acknowledge that because that's like more embarrassing than being wrong, I think, for people.
Whoa.
You
Yeah.
know.
Like I fell for a cult. I fell for the programming. You're so right. That's a big,
Right.
but then I think that goes again to, it's like the same as the repressed sexual shame that leads people to judge sex work and sex workers so much, where it's like having to,
Hmm.
yeah, admit that they fell for some kind of propaganda about sexuality or about sex workers. Maybe that is too for like the beginning curiosity here of people seeing sex workers one-dimensionally, is just having to admit that, oh, I was seeing sex workers one-dimensionally.
Hmm.
Like I went through that when I was much more judgmental of the industry before I joined it, and judgmental of who clients were and who
Hmm.
anything about it, that it was a humbling for me to admit I was wrong about a lot of it. And a lot of my perceptions are like, I vividly remember having a sugar daddy showing me a video of his kid and being so excited to show me this video of him and his kid singing a song in the car,
Hmm.
and he was just so proud and excited, and
Aw,
it was adorable. And I was just like
yeah.
smack in the face with my own, oh, you were wrong about your judgments about clients and about
Hmm.
people and about this whole thing.
Yeah. And
Good
I think
moment.
that one of the big things about like the clients is this assumption that like every person who sees a sex worker, first of all, is a man. That's just not true. But also
Yep.
that they're like weird, abusive, like incel misogynists or something who can't date or
Yep.
can't find women or are into something that's too extreme that no quote unquote normal woman would do it with them. And it's like,
Yep.
that's really not accurate at all.
Yeah. Well,
No,
I guess it's connected
no.
to the like, if sex workers are going to be seen as not humans, then also seeing their clients, or like you were saying, of people like men looking at porn and dehumanizing anybody connected with it. It's so weird
Yeah. And
watching it
that's,
all change though now, and like people from different industries having their own porn pages, and like you said, like
hmm.
people are willing to masturbate online for whatever number of dollars a month, that it makes the whole house of cards of like, no one would do that and it's gross and blah blah blah. It's like, actually,
Hmm. Actually, it's totally fine.
we
You know, and I think that part of that too is it's really good to see stories that aren't specifically designed to be like the most horrific things you've ever heard or seen in your life, right?
Yep.
Like that's a little bit of that like true crime bug, I think, where it's like we talk about sex workers and like, oh, the last time I heard about a sex worker, she was, like gang raped and stabbed 17 times and her arm was found in another state, and it's like that's not the
It's a TV show.
standard
Yeah.
thing
Like that's a
for sex
TV show
workers.
episode. You saw
Like
it on
like
a
there
television show.
right? Like there are sex workers who are absolutely brutalized. There are sex workers who are murdered. Sex workers are a target of serial killers because no one cares about sex workers. But to pretend that that's sort of like the standard for every sex worker is just such a bizarre thing. And also, like, that's one of those things, like, really sit down and think about stuff like that. Because if almost every sex worker was at risk like that, then there would be thousands and thousands and thousands of sex workers going missing and turning up dead every single year. Like, thousands upon thousands in this country alone
That's such a good point.
because there's thousands and thousands of people who do sex work. Like,
Yep. Basic curiosity about statistics, people. Come on, we can do it.
honestly,
You can
like
do
that's one of the biggest like um that inoculations against propaganda is really being curious about where these numbers are coming from and who's doing them.
it. Yes. So
Because
real.
if thousands of people are being sold into sexual slavery, right? That's the term they use every year. Then at some point, like if you're in your 30s, you should know at least five people who went missing because of human traffickers by now. If it's thousands and thousands of people every year,
You're
you
like,
should at least know someone who went missing.
that's a
You
good,
know,
yeah. See, that's a very effective type of outreach, to be like, okay, I'm here with statistics also. If that statistic was true, here's another one. Is it? No. No, it's not. Discuss. Please discuss.
please discuss.
This is
You
a good,
know,
this is a perfect opportunity to talk about swap. And
yeah.
honestly, I would mostly love for you to share how you got involved with them, and then also any kinds of things about where people can find or support, or how to
So
use the curiosity.
yeah, use the curiosity. So I don't know. And I'm not going to presume that your podcast listeners know who I am. But if you do know who I am, you know I like to talk a lot of shit online.
Accurate.
Uh,
Is
I
it
was
shit
kind of
talking
known
if
for
you're
talking shit
right?
on.
Is it shit talking if you're right?
It is what talking if you're right. I posted a lot on Twitter back in the day. I'm on Bluesky now. But I posted on Twitter a lot about sex workers' rights and just my own frustration because I had done sex work. I had done outdoor sex work when I didn't have secure housing, and like things were just really rough for me. I was doing it in the city of Chicago, and ended up getting like brutalized by cops because I was outdoors, and it was really, really awful. And then I ended up doing other types of sex work and eventually got more stable and things became better for me. And one of the things that was very frustrating to me was that I was never really allowed to talk about my experience because the only people who wanted me to talk about the abuses that I suffered when I was working outdoors were basically like rescue orgs who were like, will amplify your voice if you talk about like why we need to end the sex work industry and why it's so horrible and this and that and the other thing. And it's like, well,
Yep.
no, what happened to me is horrible, but also a lot of not bad things happened to me. And also, I didn't have resources to get out of doing sex work at the time. And y'all aren't giving people the opportunity to actually exit sex work if it isn't the right fit for them. So I'm not going to support your propaganda.
That
And
if you
so
were actually anti-sex worker, they would get basic resources to women so that it wasn't a decision they made about.
right. Like if you, yeah, because that's the biggest thing is like, I feel like anyone who wants to stay in the sex work industry should do so. I feel like if it's not the right industry for you, you should be allowed to leave and you should have resources to help you do that. But that would look like things like affordable housing. It would look like job training. It would look like educational training, vocational training. It would look like healthcare. It would look like help with daycare, right? And if you're not giving those to people, then you're not actually fucking serious about getting people out of the industry. So just get the fuck out of my face already. Like, I don't have the time for these lies,
Amen.
quite frankly. Like,
Well, it
like,
sounds
because
so
if you want to get
frustrating.
people, oh, what was that? Wait, what'd you say?
That it just sounds so frustrating, and I relate to the where you're
Yeah,
like, oh, people wanted to hear my story, but only if I was going to totally talk down on this industry that kept you alive, that saved you, that helped you in ways as well, that had
yeah,
experiences as well. And that you're like, oh, you want me to be one of these trafficking statistics or one of these other like bullshit statistics that
right.
like, hold on, no, there's like a way bigger system here that
Yeah, and like I was just like, I'm not fucking doing that. And so I used to tweet a lot and I used to make a lot of threads about how like sex workers do deserve to have a voice. And I am a reliable narrator of my own life because I was there. I lived it. Like I can tell you what happened.
I love.
And so, that kind of like helped me get started with sex worker activism. And at the time, someone who was working with SWAP was like reading my tweets. And this was right after SESTA FOSTA passed. And they were like, hey, we're getting a bunch of sex workers together to go to DC and talk to lawmakers about this bullshit that they just passed and why it's going to harm sex workers. You seem to have like a pretty good handle on the issue. Would you like to come? And I was like, yeah, for sure. So I actually went to DC, which was great. And I did that with Swap. Swap like funded the trip. And it wasn't just me, it was other sex workers as well. And so, went there and did that. And then from there, I started to really, get closer with the folks at Swap. And then I became a board member for a little while. And then they were like, hey, would you like a job here? I was like, I would love a job here. And so now I work with Swap. And that's kind of how that happened. So, yeah, that was the trajectory of it.
So cool.
So, yeah,
It's very, very
yeah,
cool. And very cool and a big relief and excitement to know that there were people there that were curious about what you were posting and curious to meet you and invite you along and curious about your story and your narration. I love that of you being an accurate narrator of
yeah.
your own life, no shit. The
Right, yeah. Because I think that's such a big thing is with sex workers is there's always this whole like you're too, yeah, well, I said it earlier, but like you're too damaged to know
yep.
what's right, or you're too abused, or you're too this, you're too that. And then if you are capable of articulating your stance, then they'll say that you're too privileged to speak on it. Like you're too much of an outlier because you're too privileged. So it's
Oh,
like no matter what you do, like you're never actually allowed to speak on sex work. And it's just
unless
like,
you're not a sex
um,
worker, you're so right. Unless you're a cis straight Christian white man making laws about sex workers, don't say anything about it.
mhm.
Excuse me.
So yeah, I can't stand these sort of narratives. And I think a lot of it too is, going back to the propaganda is like so much of it is propaganda that people don't realize. Like I always think of Somali Mom, like when we talk about propaganda, that was yeah.
I don't know that story.
Um oh yeah, this is a This is a old ho shit. So Somali Mom ran a foundation in Cambodia that was supposed to be anti-sex trafficking, but her focus was catering to the West,
Oh,
uh, in particular for funding.
oh
Yeah.
no. Oh no.
And right. And so somewhere around like I want to say 2012, 2013, maybe 2014 or so, it came out that a bunch of the stories she was telling weren't true because she was having these young Cambodian women tell these like really just like the most like gut wrenching, horrific stories you've ever heard about the time that they were trafficked and working in brothels. And then
Oh
it turned out like a bunch of those stories weren't actually true.
no.
So yeah, like one of the stories that I specifically remember was a young woman who she had had uh like a tumor in her eye and had to have like eye surgery and her eye was removed when she was a child. That's just something that happened. And Somali Mom got her and got her to like go and speak at events, like these like corporate hosted events, and say that she had been trafficked and was working in a brothel, and that like the brothel, I think it was either the brothel owner or one of the clients, like stabbed her in the eye, and that's how she lost her eye. And like the day that she got stabbed in the face, she had to keep working, and so like men were like multiple men were coming in and having sex with her like while like her eye was bleeding. And it was just like this, it was just like the most like horrible, heart-wrenching story you've ever heard in your life.
Yep.
And then it turned out it wasn't true, that she had actually lost her eye because she'd had a tumor. But basically, Somali had told her, like, well, this stuff has happened to other girls, and we need you to tell the story because they can't speak for themselves. And so she basically, like, exploited this young woman to, like, tell these stories about things that didn't happen to her to these, like, Western audiences to talk about sex trafficking in third world countries in the global South and, you know, use it as fundraising and to, like, really propagate the idea of how bad sex trafficking is. And it was just like,
Crazy beyond crazy.
like I don't even know where to go with that.
Wow.
Yeah, and so like, and you know, we've seen a lot of that type of stuff. You know, we've seen that. We've seen who was it, Exodus Cry in the United States. There was someone who was a former survivor of sex trafficking who was working with them because that person thought that Exodus Cry was trying to help, and then it turned out like Exodus Cry was also exploiting her. Like they would send her, like keep in mind, this is someone who had actually been a victim of sex trafficking. They would just send her clips of like videos from different porn sites if they thought the person in the video was like it wasn't like a role play non-consent situation, like it was actually like a rape scenario or that person was like actually being trafficked, and they would send them to her and be like, what do you think about this? So they
Oh
were making this
God.
poor girl watch these like potential actual rape videos so that they could post about them online. And it was just like, who the fuck does that?
Who does that is right.
Who the fuck does that? Like, it's just so yeah, like there's so much like grimy stuff. And then there's who is it? Tim Ballard with Operation Underground Railroad. He's not with them anymore, but he apparently was the actual trafficker. Like he was going to non-white countries to allegedly save children from sex trafficking, but he was trafficking women from his own church congregation in the process. Like he was bringing them across international borders to have sex with them because his thing was like we have to pretend that we're married, and in order to like make our marriage identity sell, we actually have to like commit sex acts together. So he was coercing women, like he would get them across international borders and then coerce them into sex acts. This is the guy who was like, there's so much grimy stuff happening in the
Was
anti-trafficking movement that people are not aware of.
that he was
Like,
actually verbatim textbook trafficking someone? That's
right,
insane.
right.
That's insane.
Yeah, like, yeah. So yeah, there's just a lot of really hinky stuff happening in anti-sex trafficking movements, and no one knows about it for the most part. So it's one of those things that when we talk about curiosity, I would like you to be more curious about your source material because a lot of the stuff that you're hearing from these very well-funded, oftentimes right-wing, oftentimes religious-leaning organizations and think tanks and 501(c)(3)s and whatever are not accurate depictions of reality, and they don't actually help victims of trafficking, nor do they support sex workers. So,
Not at all. And it's so heartbreaking how often that they're often the ones trafficking are somehow involved in
Hmm.
using this veil of, oh, let's talk about trafficking to then be predatory. And then also using the classic veil of she's crazy, she's an unreliable source, she's too
Yep.
traumatized, or like you said, which was such a good point too, of, oh, well, she's either too traumatized or too privileged to be able to speak on this, to then
Hmm.
deter people from listening to the real stories from the
Hmm.
real lived experience rather than like, oh, let's just read this story as is, and then later we'll freak out about Ashton Kutcher. Once the truth is finally there, even though people were looking up for, even though the
Right.
what needs to shift, or like what is the, when it's like, oh, just listen to sex workers more, listen to things more. What do you think is the identity shift? Or like, to me, I think there's a big part of people confronting their own sexuality that needs to
Hmm.
happen, but I think there's more to it than that. Or I think there's a lot of layers.
Well,
Like, how do you get people to listen?
I think that one of the big things is we need to acknowledge that people like porn.
Since literally
And
caveman days, it's been on the walls everywhere.
right. And like, and also when I say porn, I don't specifically mean like, uh, something that came from like a porn studio, I mean anything that's sexually explicit or graphic, right? Because if that's how the opposition is going to frame porn, then we can't only make our focus on, like a literal pornography film because they don't literally mean pornography films. They mean everything, right? So they're going to lump it together, then say, okay, fine. Then by your definition, I like porn because I like to read erotica. I like to read romance books with sex scenes, and that apparently is porn to you. So guess what? I like porn.
Right.
Um,
Just everybody
I like to play. Yeah.
everyone admit you like
Right.
porn because everyone likes some type of porn if we're by these
Right.
definitions.
And like, be loud about it. Because I think one of the things is because there is so much shame, people don't want to admit that, like, oh, I like porn. Well, just say you like porn then. I read erotica. It's fine. It's fine.
Big,
Like,
big recommendation.
you know, recommendations for erotica.
Yeah, or like I love hearing the stuff people like or just getting
Oh,
whenever people are like obsessed about a thing, it's with reason or like they have a
I mean, I would in general suggest the website Literotica because they have like everything. So
no,
if you have a kink, it will be on there.
okay, I don't, but I can get
So
you can look
yeah,
around.
I mean, you don't even have to sign up to read the stuff for the most part. So yeah, but yes, I have a Literotica account. Yeah, whatever.
Very cool. I'm Tantra. I get very into like yoga breathing, dance, like co-breathing kind of stuff. I'm not
Okay. Okay.
or my proud sexual nerding, being like, have you breathed with them the whole time? Like, what breath play have you done? And not choking. I don't want your fucking hand pushing against my windpipe. But
Oh my God. Can I say, I am so glad that you said that though, because that's also one of my things is people
porn,
be
it's
like,
so
well,
porn brain. No woman wants that. Like, I want to
right.
teach a
And
class
it's
about
like,
like, grab the sides of her neck. I love
yes.
to move my head around by the side of my neck. I love you grabbing the back of my neck to pull me in for a kiss. Amazing, sexy. Pushing where I breathe? No, it's porn brain. It's the same as the porn
But
brain of like, oh, sex is supposed to be blowjob and then doggy style, and then I come, right?
right. And that's it. And that's it. But one of the things that like I wish people would acknowledge is like, oh, I like porn or I'm in tune with my sexuality,
I
which
like
allows us
sex.
to
You can
have
just be
better
like,
conversations. Because that allows us to have better conversations because I'm seeing so many stories about women who are like, well, he just choked me during sex. And then it's like, okay, well, that's really fucked up because that's something you should definitely ask someone before you do it. But did you guys have like a conversation before you engaged in sex acts about like, oh, these are the kind of things I'm into, these are the things I'm really not into?
yep,
So many people don't do that.
ever.
And I wish that we were more open about sexuality because I think that would cut down on a lot of these things. If you started off before you had sex to be like, this is a no go for me, I'm totally into that. Like, it would make sex better for everyone. Like, can
Everyone.
we
Oh,
please?
I could
Can
not
we
agree
please?
more. Can we please? And I think that's the biggest curiosity or the biggest, because I do think the ripple effects of that are huge and people being open rather than being like, oh, sex is this thing we're not supposed to talk about before, during, or after. Like, what? No, have a
Hmm.
talk about what you like. Have a post talk. Talk about what was good or what wasn't
Right.
good or what you want to do next time. Or like,
Yes. Yes.
and I think this again is where sex workers intimidate people, that to do any kind of sex work, you have to have some degree of openness with your own sexuality that I think is what can intimidate people, make people jealous, make people uncomfortable, make people shut down from their curiosity. And then
Mhm.
sometimes when someone's open can make them open up to it and be like, wow, I've never had someone ask me this before sex, or get to
Right.
have a new experience in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to see more of that. And I think that a less sexually repressed society would be good in that way as well. You know? Um, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I would like to see more of it because I want people to have better sex lives. And I think that having a better sex life in general makes you more content as a person. And I think it also creates a more sexually healthy society because when stuff is on the margins or it's hidden or you can't talk about it, then you know, um, it's harder to know how to engage in safer sex practices. It's harder to know how to engage in healthy boundary making. It's harder to know how to engage in things that actually bring you pleasure because you've never really been allowed to experience those concepts before, you know? So be curious about that. Be
Aw.
curious about having good sex.
Yeah, I really agree with that a lot. And I feel like that's just as important in the sex ed process as all the other things, that supposed to be an enjoyable activity. If you're not enjoying it, let's talk about that. Like this is
Right.
that is the focus here. It's powerful stuff to shift that, because I've had moments for sure with people where like getting to see somebody and have the experience where somebody sees sex as a fun and pleasurable thing and a connective thing rather than a like using somebody's body to masturbate kind of thing, and being very
Hmm.
connected,
Hmm.
that how much that changes, like you said, about that person just being happier in their own life. And I mean, I think so many statistics on violence related to sex would be so different.
Hmm.
All happy and open.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. I would love to see it.
Classic Puritanism propaganda.
Ugh,
So annoying. It's so
it's
annoying.
the worst. It's the worst, honestly. It really, really is.
I wish it were socially acceptable sometimes when you see like the very like stereotypical Karen, Puritan Karen, like freaking out about something. I've wished for a while it was socially acceptable to gift her a vibrator and be like, here, like
Here, this might
respectfully.
help.
Yeah, like please, like I also get like this when I haven't gotten off in a long time. It's okay. Like no shame, but
Hmm.
no socially
Right.
acceptable. If you can think of one ever, please let me know. Or like maybe I set up a booth and I let them come to me and I say like, "Hey, come get your first ever vibrator and talk about like how your mood is impacted by how,
Yes.
how your connection with your body." And like I can think of all sorts of disordered eating things and things I've gone through, that tantra and sexuality and just getting more comfortable with that has been huge for.
And oh my God, can I just say on the topic of like good sex can make you feel better is the opposite of that. Like a lot of the porn addiction shit is
Yep.
not real. Like it's a lot of it is not real. It's pseudoscience. But also
Good.
a lot of it, like your brain on porn. Did you know that they're like Carezza people? Did you know that they're affiliated with Carezza? Do you know Carezza?
No, very like only the surface, but I didn't know that those were connected. And
Yeah.
is
So
that the
like
same as
the
your brain
people
on
from
drugs propaganda? Pardon, is that the same
yes,
thing? Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're like they're the Carezza, also the Carezza people. So Carezza is this thing. I guess it means like caressing or something in Italian.
Which is
Where
sexual,
the
which they're fucking dipshits. You can't have
okay,
a sexual name.
but here's their thing. Here's their thing. Okay, are you ready for this?
Ready.
Carezza thinks that you should engage in sex with an intimate partner, like a long-term partner, but you're not allowed to come. You're not
Ugh.
allowed to
Then
orgasm.
that's tantra propaganda where people are like, isn't tantra where you never come? No, it's where you pay attention. That's so
And
annoying.
yeah, and so yeah, so Carezza's thing is that like you should engage in like caressing someone in a certain amount of intercourse, but you should never achieve climax because climax is like what fucks up your brain. And that's how they came to the conclusion that porn is like addictive and ruins your brain because you're orgasming while you're watching porn, and orgasms are bad for your brain health. So I would just like to point out that if that's your perception, you're never going to have a healthy sex life.
Never. There's no
Like
change.
they literally, yeah, because like the one of the people from Careza literally argued that like women orgasming causes them to be like bad wives and mothers because orgasms make women overly emotional,
I
and
thought
that if
that
you're a man,
hysteria. Wait, I'm sorry. The fuck? What about hysteria making women overly emotional and crazy when they weren't orgasming? They're just going the other
don't
extreme.
worry about that. Don't
Don't
worry about
worry
that.
about it.
And then they were saying that like with men, if you don't like if you have too many orgasms, that'll like ruin your brain chemistry, and then you'll become like a violent terrorist
Oh my God.
because yeah, like these this is the root of the anti-porn people. Like when you know that this is who they are at their root, really think about if you want to take their work seriously. Do you really want to take the work seriously of someone who says that a woman orgasming causes her to behave badly and to basically be a bitch is what it came down to, like
Yeah.
being snappy and being rude and being uncomfortable and unpleasant to be around. Like really think about that. Is that the person you want to accept science about sex from?
That's insanity. There's literal
Yeah.
biological studies showing the bullshit of that too. Like I don't even have to go into
Mm-hmm.
like woo-woo tantra yoga teacher brain. Like well, that's crazy. There's so many studies
Mm-hmm.
that it's crazy too when like a group like that will make some kind of metric or like, oh no, we're going by the science, but then not go by the science at all.
Exactly.
And yes, to be curious about who you're taking that information from. Wow. So nobody there is getting off ever. Like nobody on that team's had an orgasm in the last decade.
I
Oh,
mean, allegedly.
allegedly. Thank you. Allegedly. Allegedly. That's so sad and not sad. Like I'm sad,
Mm-hmm.
I'm but I'm but I'm not in yeah, that's wild. I can't believe that I've never heard about it going to the other extreme from women are hysterical because they're not orgasming. I had no idea. Uh that the pendulum went all the way to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, women can't win. If we have orgasms, we're crazy, and if we don't have orgasms,
Yes.
we're crazy. Cool.
Yep. I
That's
mean,
great news. That's like
yeah.
a really free society for me to live in. Amazing.
Right.
And then men act like that doesn't impact them, or like, and trans people and non-binary people, I'm not bringing up there because I've never like those are not the groups of people having issues here. That men are then having the issues to be like, well, it's like the same thing of, oh, women should be virgins before marriage, but men should have experience. Okay, with who?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Mm-hmm.
What? Do you know how math works? What do you mean? Crazy. Wow. I had no idea about the Caressa bullshit. Thank you for educating me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little wild. It's a little wild.
Can I send them vibrators? Is that legal? Is that allowed?
I mean, probably.
What
Probably
what kind of malicious compliance? Because that's my best current idea. Send them vibrators.
from
I'll
the
get back to
vibrators.
you on this, but I'm not gonna drop this. I got some ideas here. There's got to be something, or like at least to laugh about it, because I don't know what else to do. Like, we can
Yeah,
put stuff out, but
I don't even, yeah, I don't even know.
I don't know either. They would freak out, then take them home. Send them like the little teeny vibrating bullets, something like really small, really discreet. It's cute.
Cute.
That's
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah. So,
Crazy, crazy. Well, I'm so glad Swap exists and you're there and there's people who are talking about this and people who
yes.
are slowly, and I do think it's kind of a volcanic exponentiation thing happening where more and more people are seeing through the obvious bullshit. Like it's not
Hoping.
sustainable. It's not sustainable. Crazy. I'm gonna put all your contact information here in the description so people can find you in all the places.
Yes.
I love
Yay.
your I stand by. I don't think it's shit talking if you're when you're saying the right thing.
Well,
Maybe a
thank
little
you.
bit, or like we could call it shit posting. I like that word.
Call it shit posting. Yeah.
It's a fun word to say, and it does kind of feel like that when I like post 10 things in a row, where I'm like, all right, this is like I get it. But I don't think it's shit talking when you're saying things that are correct. Shit talking is what is the shit talking is being like we're gonna name ourselves a derivative of the word caress, and then we're gonna tell people that orgasms are bad. That's
Right? Like it's yeah. It's just it's goofy out here. It's goofy.
that's a good word for it too, or like a good way to kind of chill out about it a little bit, of being like, that's goofy, like that's just ridiculous. You goofs, you goobers, go masturbate, please, goobers. Do something.
Right?
Man,
Please go masturbate.
yeah, please go maybe that'll be the title of the episode. Caressa, go masturbate. I can take that. But if they listen this far, I stand by it.
Yes, be curious and go masturbate.
Be curious and go masturbate. Amen. Thank you so much for making the time. This was so fun and so educational. Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to be on. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, people, for tuning in and listening. And thanks for being you.